years ago, Woodrow Wilson said, "What good is a political party unless it's serving a great national purpose? And what good is a private college or university unless it's serving a great national purpose?"
I've given some thought about my childhood growing up. You know, one thing about prison, it gives you an opportunity, if you take it, an opportunity to do a lot of reflecting upon your past.
You know, clear this crap on me about, well, you know, you my son, and, yeah, you know, I'll pay it back, and, you know, we come up with a contract.
But he done this before.
Yeah.
This is the Ambassador Hotel. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
They have an emergency. They want the police to the kitchen right away.
What kind of an emergency?
I don't know, honey. They hung up. I don't know what
We'll
happened.
find out. We don't send out
I
without...
beg your pardon?
We have to know what we're sending on.
That's all he said and hung up. It's some kind of an emergency. I don't know what happened. You know, we have the Kennedys and everybody here tonight.
You have what?
Mr. Kennedy here.
Big deal.
Hiya, fellas. This is G.I. Jill with the G.I. Jive. Yep, the old jukebox that hangs around G.I. Jive is set to operate again. And this session, I'm going to live up to my name of G.I. Jill by doing the show by the numbers. I can hear the groaning from all parts of the world. Does it make you think of good old basic training? And look, you certain PSC from APO 322, that invitation to dinner at your mom's sounds all right. And now we'd better get back to the jukebox and Glenn Miller playing Rhapsody in Blue for Jack, Abe, Blitz, Red, Roy, and Walter at APO 959.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth. No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind.
The black and white picture seemed almost ghost-like, but it clearly showed the two men cavorting about in the 1/6 gravity of the moon.
Be careful when you tune your radios in to pay no attention to the pirate signals that sometimes take over the laser communications from outer space. It's high technology, and sometimes, of course, there are problems with it.
The American Space Shuttle Challenger exploded about a minute after it was launched yesterday, and all 7 crew are assumed to have died. President Reagan said the United States was in mourning, but the space program would continue.
And Mr. Krupp showed some footage of a program that is on every evening in the Soviet Union for children called Good Night Little Ones. And after he showed it, he said, I guess the closest thing we have to this in the United States is Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
I don't believe that Sirhan's bullets ever hit my father.
Okay.
And neither did the coroner, Thomas Noguchi, who's probably the most famous coroner in American history, who did an autopsy that is known as the perfect autopsy. He actually flew in the chief coroners of all the every branch of the military service to sit in the surgery theater to watch what he did because he knew what had happened in Dallas. And he didn't want to repeat.
Hello. Allow me to introduce you to a few of the open-minded, free-thinking faithful, my friends and yours. Broadcasting live from somewhere in the Everglades. Welcome to the Conspiracy Squad.
Just making assumption based on the
Hi, I'm
immigration-
Nigel Kent, and welcome to the Conspiracy Squad. Gabby McAllister joins us. I'm sorry for interrupting you, Gabby, and Jasmine Starr, two of my very best friends in the world. I hope you guys are wonderful, and I'm sorry for interrupting your conversation. The live chat is loaded with people, so why don't you both introduce yourselves real quick? I'll double-check your levels while you do so, and go for it. Jazz, how are you today?
I'm doing well. My name is Jasmine Starr. I am the former co-host of the Trouble in Paradise podcast and now part of the Conspiracy Squad panel.
Fantastic. And Gabby McAllister.
Hi, guys. As most of you know, I've been a holistic healer now for 25 years, and I work with people and animals all around the world to keep people and animals healthy. With foundational ways of doing health. It's the best way I could say it. It's a Monday afternoon, folks. I'm kind of like not a lot going on in the brain. I'm waking up.
How do you spell that?
I almost have my iced coffee done, so by the time this is done, I should be waking up again. I was on the phone with clients all day, so I'm a little bit like, whoa.
I hear you. Well, it has been that kind of week. If you think about it, 1 week ago today, Joe Biden was still the candidate, which is mind-blowing to me. We were 2 days post-assassination event, and, I mean, wow, have things changed. Kamala Harris has declared that she's running for president, and...
Sorry.
Now, we debated...
You mean Montel Williams' side hoe?
Okay. Listen, you know how we do the poll of the week now? I was going to make the poll of the week be, what's your favorite Kamala Harris nickname? But I decided, being a person of such good taste, that rather than put out things like Camel Toe and Kamala Harris and all this kind of stuff, that maybe we would just stick with a little more... topic-oriented poll of the week. And that reminds me, Jazz, if you were at Conspiracy Squad and you clicked on poll of the week, what would happen?
If I clicked on the poll of the week, I would get a poll that states, if you were president, what would be, I want to word it properly here.
Oh, I put you on the spot. It has to do with immigration.
I know, you did. Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I'll get it pulled up on the asset share so you guys can take a look at it. Where is it?
I've gotten too much information from you today.
Sorry.
I have the Kamala Harris one.
If you were president, what would you do about immigration, Jasmine Starr?
If I were president?
Yes.
I would be deporting everyone.
Everybody. Uh-oh, we're in trouble.
No, I mean, I think, we're going to get into this obviously more and the reasons why. I think if there are people that are legally here in the country, they've taken the necessary steps to be here, securing a work visa, whatever that may be. That's one thing. But those who have crossed our border illegally, I feel like they should be deported, and I am in favor of that.
So we've got a poll up that says, if you were the president, what would you do about immigration? There's a lot of different options. And right now there's quite a few votes on this poll. A couple of us shared it earlier in the day. So go check that out, conspiracysquad.com, and then click Poll of the Week. Poll of the Week. Gabby, I know this is a sweet spot for you, being right down there, closer to the border than either of us. And we're going to dive deep into that. But before we do, there have been some really interesting developments in this Secret Service hearing today. And the reporting is that this Director Cheadle is maybe she's not going to step down. She might be facing the end of her career here. What do you think about that, Gabby? What the hell is going on with this Secret Service director?
Well, I think, every three-letter agency is infiltrated by the 1%. They have an agenda. They are not on the side of the American people. And this Secret Service director, I mean, it's borderline treason, if not treason itself, what's been done. And the fact that they had people surrounding a former president, I don't care whether you like him or not, he's a former president. And you know, if the Secret Service was saying things like, well, I don't like him, so I won't take a bullet for him, well, that's the nature of the job, then you should have recused yourself from the position if you were not willing to protect the former president because you have, you know, whatever, you personally don't like him. That's fine, but don't stay on and then not do your job, because that's completely out of integrity. And then that again, could that be treason? That the Secret Service director is very well aware of these individuals, and obviously in on it too. So the whole thing just smells rotten.
Isn't that kind of consistent though with the way a lot of the official prosecution of the, I guess, anti-Trump politics has gone though? There have been judges that ought to have recused themselves as well, particularly in the New York State case, and that didn't happen either. So
well, that's the whole thing, though, the lack of integrity, right? And the manipulations and the politicking when there should be an integrity and you have a duty to perform, whether you're a judge or a Secret Service agent, you agree to a certain standard of conduct. And none of these standards of conduct are being upheld. Basically, it's being used divisively by the 1% and the puppet masters to, you know, create this rotten show.
And it seems like the ability to enforce the rule of law as it pertains to these political maneuvers has been neutered. In other words, I mean, I know that the Trump had the one case dismissed, but I mean that was kind of the least of his worries from a legal standpoint. There's still, I think there's still a federal case pending, and I think there's still a New York case pending. So if they're actually baseless, and these are just people that are taking advantage of loopholes and playing legalese, what is it about the other side of the political spectrum that is so impotent when it comes to enforcing or defending their side of the turf? I mean, it does seem like a very lopsided thing.
Well, because it's all infiltrated, and so it's all like the cards are stacked with these individuals that are not going to defend the rule of law. And so there's such a thing where judges could penalize people for frivolous lawsuits without merit, lawsuits that were not, or, you know, laws that were not being upheld within the spirit of the law and the way it was designed to work. You're not seeing any judge follow those three categories whatsoever. So it's because it's all loaded.
And
you know, with
conflicts
the
of
bad
interest
guys
are just being ignored and sort of brushed aside as well. Serious conflicts of interest.
Right. There's no ethics. There's no morality. And that all goes back to, you know, people have no moral compass anymore.
Well, some of us do. And I honestly think there's some people that are not conspiracy theorists, that are not fully awake, that also have moral compasses. And they just don't want to give in to the discomfort that is required and to fully embrace the pull towards that recognition of morality. I mean, it is tough to just put down your comfort zone, step out of your comfort zone and say, you know what, I've been lied to for 40 or 50 or 55 years, and finally the light bulb is on. I mean, that is a tough moment. And I'm not saying that everybody on the other side of the spectrum is wrong or even errant, but gosh, it's a lot harder to come around when you have this comfort zone that you just don't want to get out of. And I know, Jazz, you kind of got out of your comfort zone quite a while ago. What was one of your biggest... I have never really asked you this on Conspiracy Squad, but what was your white pill moment, if you had one? What was the thing that kind of just got your nerves tingling and your spirit buzzing about, wow, there's such a bigger world?
That's a loaded question. I mean, between like red pilling and white pilling, I think it's as spiritually like evolution, and looking at things from a different perspective, a different point of view. Um, I've gained like quite a bird's eye perspective where I don't necessarily jump like I used to. I'm seeing things in a different way.
Yeah.
And I can look back on, so many of the different things that we covered from all the way back from, moon landing and the potential of Stanley Kubrick to Phoenix Lights, which I know that you guys covered that one. 9/11 is a big one. The Challenger explosion, you name it. A lot of those now I can kind of just see from a different bird's eye view, and I think that that's kind of where I woke up.
Yeah, it's like in some ways it's having X-ray goggles that kind of show the trickery a little bit. Like it's not completely shown to you, but it's like it's enough to raise an eyebrow. And if you're okay being outside of your comfort zone with all of those, easy, reliable kind of go-to talking points about all these situations that happened in history, then you're good. History is accurate. Everything happened exactly as they as they say it did, and I'm comfortable, and we're all very happy with that.
I've never been comfortable. I've always been an odd duck, and I'm all right with that.
Yeah. So mine was 9/11. That was my white pill. And I've told that story to both of you and probably everybody that's watching the program other than our newcomers. And real quick, I would like to greet our new audience members. I'm scrolling the names of some of the newest audience members across the bottom of the screen if you're watching live on Rumble. We do have the stream going out to YouTube today as well. Good luck, YouTube. We're about to be in two-strike territory probably after this stream, so we'll see what happens. I know in the green room, Gabby and Jazz were talking about censorship when I left to get the stream launched, and when I came back, they were both laughing at the top of their lungs, which is awesome. So what is speaking of laughing, what do you think about Vice President Cackles? And what is your favorite nickname? Since we touched on that at the top of the show, like what do you call Vice President Harris now that she's running for the West Wing? I still call her Cackles.
Hoe bag.
Oh. Well, she was a prostitute. I mean, she was a well-known prostitute in L.A. for a long time.
Well, yeah, and then she was with the mayor when she was 29 when he was married, and he was instrumental in starting her career.
The mayor of San Francisco, yes.
Yeah, and I'm very well versed, like with my friends in D.C. that I've spoken to. It was very well known that she pretty much slept with anything and everything that would get her where she wanted to go. So, I mean, I absolutely have no respect for this individual. I don't think she's that bright. I think she's not the best and the brightest, and she certainly should have never been a VP candidate by any means.
But is she black?
No.
Well, is she a U.S. citizen? Because there's a lot of debate online that both her parents, so she was born here, and thus being born here allowed her parents to stay here, and under the rules, she technically should not qualify to hold any office of this magnitude.
Oh, you're saying she was an anchor baby?
Yeah, she's an anchor baby, and that's what, is being circulated all over the place with documents. Are the documents real? Are they not?
So I thought the rule was that you just had to be a native-born citizen, which she is. What's the difference with an anchor baby?
Obama wasn't a U.S.-born citizen, and many people may debate that, but you know what? I will stick to my guns on that one too. He was not born in the U.S.
I think that's been more or less proven. Yeah, that one has.
Yeah, that's.
I'm going to call that one conspiracy fact. That's it. We're done on YouTube. They probably just cut our stream right there. But sorry, keep going, Jess. Sorry.
No, I mean it's you're asking that question, and I can't go anywhere else but to say, you know, we already had Obama in office, and we all know about the birth certificate from Hawaii. You don't have to be born in Hawaii to get a Hawaiian birth certificate.
Well, you don't have to be born in the U.S. at all to get a forged one.
Well, and if it's been proven, why isn't he in jail? Why isn't everybody who promoted him in jail for propagating that?
Because because the right side of the spectrum refuses to conduct a lawfare, even when it's justified, Gab.
Because
I know, but yeah,
I went on.
So
I went on the constitutional law thing, you know, last week and everything, but I'm just going to say that we are not following constitutional law at all.
No.
It hasn't been done in a while, and it's
Exactly.
driving me absolutely batshit crazy.
Well, yeah, because, you know, there's also conspiracy theories. I'm going to redirect this conversation for a quick thing back to Hobag. There's some serious allegations that she is not a female. And the more I look into it, the allegations seem to merit some look into it, just like Big Mike.
Well, she does have an Adam's apple, Gabby. I noticed that she has an Adam's apple in many, many photos.
Yeah, and I don't think it's just the Adam's apple, but there's, you know, a male name associated with her, and the photos are quite interesting. So if they're not AI doctored and it is proven, then, you know, I think, you know, it's not that I have a problem with someone wanting to whatever be a different sex. I kind of do have a problem with it, but if you're going to run for office, then the transparency has to be 110%.
You mean if I were going to run for president, I wouldn't be able to claim that I'm a woman? I mean,
like, you know, or a woman of color, you know what I mean? Like, because
I'm a woman of color, though, Gab.
Yeah, but yes, because you identify that, so that you have every right now based on, you know, the insanity that we're going through in this country.
I see.
But, you know, I have a, she's absolutely not the best and the brightest. She's just been on knee pads for a long time and easy to manipulate and control. So it's just so difficult to watch these very unintelligent individuals suddenly leading the country. It's like my husband said it the other day, it's like we're choosing the dumbest to lead us. And I said, no, we're not choosing. They're being installed because then the 1% tells them exactly what to do.
Yeah,
and they do it.
We're not. I didn't choose these people, that's for sure.
No.
You know, then again, if I chose everybody that was running the country, we'd probably have a whole different set of problems. So, but all right. So we want to try to refrain from calling too many names if we can.
Okay.
So let's talk a little bit about immigration. We've got some action at the southern border. I mean, there's action everywhere right now. The place where I live here in the Everglades is inundated with mostly pretty nice Cuban immigrants, many of whom I happen to know are not here legally, most of whom I happen to observe are very good and decent people. However, I have encountered a few people that would not fall into that category, and I think that is primarily what we're trying to root out when we talk about immigration as a crisis. It's not about people who are good-natured and have good intentions and want to do well for themselves and their families, because that's what America is all about. I think we can all agree on that. It's about the people who are freeloading on those good intentions and using those good intentions as a mule.
And we're having rapes and murders of innocent people because of, and I can't call them immigrants. I refuse to call them immigrants. They're not immigrants. They're illegal aliens. And unless you've gone about it the right way, I'm kind of with Jazz. Get the fuck out.
Now, so we have had rapes and murders for decades and decades in the United States, but, and this is where I think the issue becomes somewhat politicized, in that the right side of the spectrum has this very sort of xeno-criminal aspect to it, and then the left side of the spectrum wants to ignore all of those things while calling people on the right xenophobes. So there's this automatic politicization of the issue, which I don't think is fair to either viewpoint, because there is a viewpoint that says borders shouldn't exist and let them all in. It's probably about the only libertarian idea that the Democrats have ever had. But I also don't think that's really they're not pure of heart in taking that policy. In other words, they're not opening the border because they want people to come in and experience freedom and liberty and individual freedom. They have other motivations.
Yeah, like they're going to let illegal aliens vote. They're going to try to stack the deck. They're going to make them promises, and they're going to try to cheat yet again, kind of passing these laws, like Jazz was saying earlier, that are completely against the Constitution.
Absolutely. And what, I talked to my friend who happens to work for Border Patrol just to get a feel for, the climate. I've been following this with him for quite a while. I followed it through with the Trump presidency. I also did now through the Biden presidency. And during Trump's presidency, there were very, very few that were coming through the border. The policy was working. He did sign that under CDC guidelines. Which
to remain in Mexico was the big change, right?
Well, I mean, he was built the wall. So what had happened there, though, whenever he signed Title 42 under the direction of the CDC, he was trying to, those that crossed, they were sent back to Mexico until they had their political asylum court date that they were to appear for. They were not allowed to stay in our country during that time. However, under the Biden administration, Biden went ahead and allowed all these people to come in. Border Patrol was ordered not to engage. They had to pretty much just babysit these people. And if they stopped, like say, he was stopping trainfuls of cars that would have upwards of 50 people. And they would say, it's too dangerous for you guys to go in. Don't engage. There's only 2 of you there. And they would have to let those people go. And that's how it started before this huge influx. It was starting with, this BS.
And you're talking 2017, 2018 timeframe, right, Jazz?
No, I'm talking. This is during Biden. This is during the early part of Biden, before we saw this mass influx across the border.
Okay, so before he repealed Remain in Mexico and before the change with Title 42.
In 2022, whenever Title 42 had been repealed.
Okay.
Now, as these people come through, they get run. They run their backgrounds. They know that they have criminal records. They know that they're felons. They know that they're rapists. They know that they're murderers. And they have a court date that's set in 2026. And they're allowed to stay in our country, where under Trump, they had to stay in Mexico until they had their political asylum hearing.
So I had
in our country
a fantastic employee during the Trump administration. It was mid 2019. I had a fantastic employee that was Mexican, and he was here legally on a work visa. His wife, however, had to return to Mexico as a condition of her naturalization process. And it was very painful for my team, but I had to let this guy go back to Mexico, and he spent 3 weeks down there working to get her moved back into the United States. This was prior to the change of administrations, and certainly prior to the relapse of, or the repeal, rather, of Title 42.
So I'm going to just interrupt really quick. So there's a person on the comments on the live chat that's the last chat that said, praise the Lord above that my great-grandparents were not turned away at the U.S.
That's my sister.
border. That's your sister. Okay,
Yeah.
well, let me put it this way. My great-great-grandfather came over from Ireland and had to go through Ellis Island. My Nana had to go through Ellis Island during the Great Depression in order to get into this country. And they were all hardworking individuals, but they went through the process.
Yeah, I'm all about the legal process, too.
And my mother, and the vetting, so that our resources aren't drained. These people right now, this is not the circumstances of 100 or 200 years ago. This
Those
is a
were-
this is a
Those were
divisive.
immigrants.
Those were immigrants. Yeah, this
not
is right
illegal
now.
aliens.
Yeah, I'm going to
Right,
add one
this
more
is-
thing too. There are
this is-
immigrants that right now are coming from Ukraine that are
Right.
struggling to get in through the legal process that perhaps need legitimate asylum and can't get it because the whole system is jammed up by people that
that's
are being
because-
allowed in.
Right. And not to mention, like, I have friends right now being denied their Social Security, and I know for a fact they are completely disabled.
That's a fair point, too.
It's
Yeah.
a paltry grand, and they just got told they're going to lose this grand that they need to survive every month. They have worked every day of their lives, and these illegals are coming over and being given all the resources while our own citizens are being driven into the ground. There is a divisiveness of how this is being used. So please do not confuse. And
Yeah.
I'm not just pointing
The,
out
the
your
politics
sister,
of it
but
is
I'm
even
pointing-
uglier.
Yeah, I'm not pointing out just your sister, but for any individual saying or trying to think that this is equating to 100 to 200 years ago, it's not the same damn thing. It's
Well,
just
it's
not. And
it's
it
not
gets me-
virtuous to say for a country rather that's $33 trillion in debt. It's not virtuous to say, hey, come on, we're going to
When we
pave the
can't-
way for you. Here's a debit card. Here's
They're trying to get rid. They're trying to do exactly what the English did to the Irish and the Scottish. They're trying to breed us out of existence because we know what the Constitution is. We know what freedoms are. These people coming in, it's like the barbarian horde. It is the worst of every country, the criminals of what they don't want. And that is very well documented. That is not a conspiracy.
Yeah, they said that I saw a study today that said the rate of criminal conviction among illegals is 40%. So 40%, 4 out of 10 that come across have been convicted, and then a remainder of the others that have not been convicted in their own countries have at least been indicted.
Yeah,
So
and,
yes,
you know,
there's some issues there.
And I'm going to bring up a recent one. My parents were married for 60 years. My mother was a foreign national. She was born in Mexico. She was a well-educated, she came from a nice family, but my dad was in codes with the U.S. Navy. And back then, they could tell you who you could marry and who you could not. And the U.S. Navy said, because she's a foreign national and you are an individual with security clearance, with codes, you cannot marry her. And I'm like, to this day, I'm like, they were right. They were right. And look at all the problems we have with foreign nationals marrying Americans in key positions that turn out to be bloody spies. Now, what my dad did was he decided...
even in Congress.
Well, even in Congress, my dad decided, I want to marry this woman. So he left the military. He was honorably discharged. And then he married my mother. And then I think it took her about 20 years to give up her passport because she really loved being a Mexican. She was very, she liked her passport. She liked her heritage. But then when we traveled...
I mean, if you were born and raised in a country, you're going to be proud of your heritage. Of course she was proud.
But when we traveled, she was treated very badly with that passport back in the day, in the 70s and 80s. And in the 80s, she said, I've had enough. She went for American citizenship. She did the whole thing correctly. And she's an American citizen with her passport. So even a modern version, right? Just do it the right way. That's all.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing is, if you're going to come to a nation, you know who has the second highest immigration in the world? Oh, look at that little design when you do the peace sign. You know who has the second highest immigration in the world besides the United States? Want to take a wild guess? It's Russia. Now, the difference between the United States and Russia, because Russia also has one of the lowest costs of living, lowest land values for private ownership, and a couple other things to its advantage. Not by no means advocating moving to Russia, but there's a reason why their immigration is so high. And that's because people can go there and experience a much, much lower cost of living. How
Well,
much
not
do you
only-
think that figures into, North America? Because in Mexico, the United States, and Canada, the cost of living is incredibly high.
Well, and I'll tell you one other thing. You go to those cities, and I have friends that are in politics that are traveling to those cities in Russia, and their streets are clean. Everything is modern. Their public transportation is pristine. There's no crime. And you come to our country, and we are an absolute, excuse my language, shithole. So my sister had the audacity to say the other day, well, we're a first world nation. I said, sweetheart, go to your definitions and read what that is. We are not. We are either third or fourth world. Even back in the 90s, we were third and fourth world. This is how ignorant the American population is to how bad we've been degraded because of the corruption.
Well, I can kind of see that point if you look at it purely from an economic standpoint. If you stack the United States up to the UK, yeah, they have 200% less debt than we do, and their GDP, even though they have no manufacturing power and very little in terms of cultural export, that ratio is still lower than the U.S. We talked about that last week when we were talking about CBDCs. So, but our answer to this is always the same thing. The answer to debt management, our answer to crime, our answer to keeping the streets clean, our answer to immigration, our answer to supporting people who are here illegally is always the same. Print money.
Well,
and so how does bringing more people into a system that prints more money get us to a spot where the people who are already here are going to be able to cash in on that American promise? I just don't think it does.
No, they don't want us to. They're trying to create a great reset, and they're trying to create a blending so that there is, look at what they're doing with Europe. Now they're doing the same thing with us by opening up these borders the way they've been doing it. And, all they're doing is degrading the society over and over and over again until, we're just a giant mess. And then because we're ignorant and we're not fighting and we're not, like Jazz was saying, protecting the Constitution and following constitutional law, they're just going to drive us into the ground and create their own new reset.
Do you think that they're doing a miniature version of that reset in Springfield, Ohio? Have you seen the story about the Haitian, for lack of a better word, the Haitian capture of Springfield, Ohio?
Yeah, of course.
So there are now estimates say 20,000 Haitian illegals in Springfield, Ohio, which represents a plurality of that city's population, and this is all within the last year. Now, I know some very decent Haitian people. There's a lot, Jazz can tell you, there's a lot of Haitians down here in towards the Everglades, probably because it's relatively close to Haiti. But why Springfield, Ohio? It just seems so peculiar to me that they would target this sleepy little town out in podunk nowhere. You guys talk about Springfield real quick. I have to do something with my dog real quick. Go.
Well, I'm going to put on my tinfoil tiara here and just give my opinion on what's going on with not just Springfield, but all of this. And that this is a George Soros funded, all part of the agenda. We are going to do mass importation of illegal aliens. What we're going to do is we're going to give them everything we possibly can for free. We're going to give them voting rights. And what we're going to do then is devise a systematic demolition of the United States as we know it. That's what's going to happen.
Well, that sounds like straight out of Klaus Schwab. I mean, that is the Great Reset right there.
It is happening. We're seeing it happen. And it's going to just continue. I always equate this to the beast. When you want to cut and kill a beast that is dying is not going to go down with a fight. So when you have those of us that believe in the Constitution, believe in freedom, want to be a sovereign nation once again, we, as I mentioned before, where the line draws in the sand last week. Those of us that are ready to stand up and fight against all of this, there's another army that's been built, and it's been built against the American people, and I'll say it right now. This is done by design. This is to fight us, the American people, the patriots, the ones that are here that want to see the best for our country to survive and be the country, not that it just once was, but the best country in the nation that we've ever had. And
So,
it's all being demolished by mass importation of illegal aliens that are going to be used against us in every possible way that they can use them.
So Frito mentioned the Cloward Piven strategy, which is a multi-generational kind of cultural reform strategy that kind of has some, I guess, has some roots in Marxism. That's a real good catch, Frito. I don't know if we've I'm not smart enough from a political standpoint to really know about a whole lot of political philosophy. I don't have a college degree or anything like that. But there does seem to be some common sense stuff going on here that just is flying over people's heads, and they're willing to accept a whole lot of stuff that they wouldn't be willing to accept if they knew all of the parameters in play. If the average everyday American understood that our country as a household was adding 25% of their debt every single year to the books, okay? I mean, you're talking about in 10 years, our national debt is going to be in the mid 40 trillions. And right now we have 75% of our federal spending budget just to manage the interest on that debt, which has been, issued at various rates over the years. The interest on the national debt has been sometimes low, sometimes high. It depends on what the bond rates are and what the treasury rates are at the time the money is printed. But the answer to all of these problems cannot be print more money. And here's the thing. No. We can't keep bringing people in if all we're going to do is print more money, because what happens when we print more money, it just takes the money out of our pocket and gives it to nobody. It really gives it to nobody.
No, it's going somewhere else too. And yes, I agree with you. It's a piece of paper. It means nothing anymore. It really, truly does. It's just, that's it. That's the crux of it. It means nothing. But it's not just giving it to what our topic is tonight. When you're talking about printing money, what did we do? We kept printing money and sending it over to Ukraine. So
even if you eliminated all of the spending on Ukraine. Exactly, because we're spending money here too.
We're going to give them what we don't have, where we can't take care of our own people, and then we've got all these people coming in, and we're going to give them money to take care of people. Meanwhile, there are people that are in absolute need. I saw it in the comments. Somebody that has a family member waiting on Social Security that has a true disability, and people who have legitimate needs, and they're not being taken care of. We are not taking care of our own.
No, they're finding
given away.
They're finding every single way to screw the American people that have worked here their entire lives, contributed as good and honest citizens. They're finding every single way they can to destroy them, because they know that they have the history and they know that they understand the Constitution. They're trying to wipe out as many of the generations that understand the Constitution. Like you said, they're completely at war, Jasmine, with the American people and those of us that were educated around the Constitution and the Bill of Rights.
It's interesting that you bring that up, too, because I know that from the time my sister was in high school to the time I was in high school, which was a 5-year difference. And Dana, I hope you're still on the chat. Jump in if this is true. But when you were in high school, didn't you take civics? Didn't you have like a functional social studies class in high school called civics? And I'm not going to tell you how old Dana is. She's a little bit older than me, and I'm old. But by the time I went to high school, not long after Dana, there was no civics class, and I graduated from high school in 1995. So
okay, I got you guys beat.
I know, I know you do.
I'm 54. I'm older than dirt. So we had social studies, and we went through the entire Constitution and the Bill of Rights. But yeah, that all got knocked out. So I graduated I graduated because I graduated university in 91. So I graduated in 88 or 89, something like that. I got in and out and all the time I was supposed to. I couldn't stand being institutionalized.
Yeah. So civics was a little bit different from what I ended up taking, because I ended up dropping out of high school and I dropped back in. When I dropped back in, I didn't take anything that was social studies at all. Now, my senior year, if I had not dropped out, I would have taken a class called American Government. But in American Government class, what they taught was how laws are passed and how the justice system is supposed to work. But there's nothing in there in that class that addresses the rights reserved for the individual and the limitations on government that are supposed to be placed by the Bill of Rights. And this is where I think a lot of the, normies and people who are just out there simping for all these different populations around the world may not understand that we're not supposed to be spending all this money. In fact, our federal government isn't supposed to have all of this power. It's supposed to have really one purpose and one purpose alone, two purposes. Protect the border of the United States is one of them. Uphold the rights of the individuals as defined in the Bill of Rights, and that's it. They're not even supposed to issue currency.
So here's something interesting, and Jasmine, I'll let you chime in on this. There are these idiots saying we're a democracy versus we are a republic. Trust me, people, you don't want a democracy, you want a republic, because the republic cares about each individual. The democracy will allow the bulk to go against the few, which is what's happening now. We are originally a constitutional republic,
which is designed to uphold the rights of the individual.
Yep. And that's where we need to be, and that's where this election also needs to be. I believe we need to also get rid of the Electoral College.
Yes.
I think it should be absolutely 100%
on the numbers. On the numbers, yep.
Yep. But, we won't get into election integrity because that'll put us off on another tangent. but really, truly, like, when we talk about democracy versus a republic, the Electoral College is something I believe that has to go to, and the vote needs to go back to whatever the vote of the people.
I don't necessarily know enough about the Electoral College to make a comment on that. I think it's an interesting system. I think the fact that it is heavily federalized is good if we're talking about things like the presidency, but the Electoral College is the only thing that we use. The presidency is the only thing that we use the Electoral College for. And I'm not sure how much power the office of president actually has, especially in this day and age. But that's my comment on that.
It's all puppeteering. Reagan was talking about the shadow government. There, Kennedy spoke about the shadow government, and
Eisenhower too.
Yeah, and I'll bring this back to I'll bring this back around to the immigration. The fact is that with what we're going through, so you have these candidates that are completely inappropriate. And when I talk about morals and values and ethics, a lot of times people will give an eye roll, and I'll say, no, we want the best, the brightest, and those with the most integrity and moral compass, because you need the best and the brightest in order to really follow the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. So that then the American people are all taken care of, including veterans, obviously. And then we can have a fair and just border policy that allows people to come to this country to be good citizens and care about why they're here and care about upholding the Constitution and have loyalty to the Republic. Whereas the way they're doing it now, because you have morally defunct individuals running things, it's like our screening. That's why I was saying about transparency. Yes, we were saying names. I was calling somebody names, but I'm calling them a name because of that fact. We should have the best, the brightest with the best integrity, but the entertainment industry, and I'm going to connect this back to the border issue, the entertainment industry has made it okay for people to be morally defunct, debased, to have no ethics, and having multiple marriages and affairs and all kinds of other crazy stuff is all okay. And so the fabric of the integrity and the moral is just eaten away at it. And so these people in government, they have no basis, no ethical basis. So of course we're having a shadow government running everything because these people just don't care. Because
they have their own motivations. Their motivations don't
Correct.
translate into the needs and wants of the people.
And that's why the vetting process, you need to care if someone slept their way to a position. You need to care, like if another person starts off as a bartender and then within 3 years of getting the job to the Senate or the Congress, they're suddenly a millionaire. You need to care because they
Are you talking about AOC? AOC is... Have you seen? She's suddenly anti-Secret Service. Like as soon as she realizes that she could potentially be a target of some political extremists, all of a sudden she's jumping on the anti-Cheadle train too.
But this is the whole thing. The American people have to insist on vetting these people out much more carefully, and also that they hold themselves to a certain standard of conduct personally and in politics and in business. And then we do forensic audits every year of every
Could this be
single
perhaps
family
why
member.
you object to J.D. Vance, because he has done a 6-year about face, and 3.5 years ago he was trying to stick everybody with a needle or get them fired from their jobs, as Jazz mentioned
because
last week?
Jazz brought that up, and that's right. You know, when people show you who they are, believe them.
Amen.
Believe them. They don't suddenly change. So this guy just flows with whichever the wind is blowing. I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him.
I think he likes the spotlight, yes, and he likes strong arming people on screen. That's for sure.
Yes. So this is the whole thing with the immigration links back to Americans upholding a certain integrity standard and moral and ethical standard and values. You know, we need to go back to that so that we can have a positive border policy. But until we get that shit straightened out, shut the whole thing down and start throwing people out.
Do you think that it's coincidental that Vance was introduced by Trump one day after the assassination attempt, or is that?
Yeah, that's going to be a whole nother conspiracy.
Because there's a lot of people that are on the JD is WEF. He is global young leaders, and he is. Completely woke and all this stuff. I mean, he doesn't talk like he is, but then again, Trump doesn't either, and he's still pro-vax. He was at one point he was pro-mask there for a little while.
Well, and that'll get us to what we talked about last week as well. Same thing. Do stop believing in a savior and start organizing amongst yourselves in your local community around the Constitution and constitutional law, and start aligning yourself with veterans groups.
Boom.
To wait for a savior, or to think either one of these clowns is a savior is just wrong. I don't trust either one of them. It's just a different wing of the same bird.
Yep. So
and you want to see a good movie though, and it's a movie that you haven't seen it in a long time, but watch the movie called Stand By Me. And it's about a guy that went into a New Jersey school that had once been the cream of the cream, and he goes into it when it's filled with drug dealers, and the good kids can't learn, and the good kids are brutalized. And he goes in there the first day when they appoint him. They called him Crazy Joe, waving around the base.
Lean on Me, I think.
Lean on Me, thank you. Lean on Me, yes. Lean on Me. And they called him Crazy Joe. And what he did was he took all the drug dealers and all the bad element, he put them on the stage, and he threw them out. And then he chained the doors wall in order to protect the good students, because he said once there's one bad apple in here, you can't save them all. So you throw out what you have to. You throw the bastards out that are infecting the rest of the ones that are trying to learn. And we've got a very similar situation with this border. Lean on Me is a great film to watch so that you can understand sometimes it takes a radical move when the system is broken in order to protect the children or the population that is trying to survive.
Well, you know,
and do it
that's
the right
fair.
way.
When the wall policy was introduced in I think, when did he come out with that? Like 2015 or something like that, before his election. You know, my first thought was, okay, this sounds like Berlin. Like I had an immediate sort of allergic reaction to it. And then, you know, as I got to know what I understand about Trump as a leader, I understand that he is a very brash, offensive individual. However, his policies are very basic. They're very commonsensical for the most part. And they don't appear to be filled with crazy ball-washing loopholes and, you know, completely illegitimate backroom dealings like we've seen with President Biden, then Vice President Biden, with all the ball-washing in Ukraine and the leverage with his son and all this stuff. I mean, can you imagine if Trump had done anything even close to that? I mean, they just hit him with, 33 counts of a paperwork mistake?
Yeah, and what's on that laptop with Biden's family, you know, they're absolute criminals. They're, you know, it's pedophilia.
No. That laptop doesn't exist. That's Russian disinformation. Don't you remember?
They already proved that it's not. And
No,
it
I know.
absolutely
They admitted
exists,
that
and
it's
they have-
not.
And they have all the information, and still there are no indictments against these people that are harming children. And it's proven that since, you know, to follow the line of the connecting the dots, that the immigration policy is fostering human trafficking and worse, child trafficking.
Let's talk really quickly about echoes in history, the timeline, and intel drops, because Frito just mentioned the phrase intel drop. And if you go back and look at I think it was, I don't remember which Q post it was, and I'm not sure QPub is even online anymore. But man, those QAnon people got to the heart of the matter after the assassination attempt and posted 3 or 4 incredible examples where I'm like, how is this a coincidence? And it really it caused me to put my conspiracy theory hat back on again. Have we seen anything more in terms of parallels with J.D. Vance and his announcement or anything like that in the last week or so? I haven't been keeping up with it.
I haven't been able to take a look. This Monday was kind of completely chaotic for me. I was hoping to get online and do some snooping around, but I didn't, unfortunately.
All right. We're going to take a look at the live chat real quick. I think we peaked at 45 simultaneous tonight, so excellent work for everybody who went to promote the show. I know a lot of these subjects are very difficult subjects, and I just want everybody that tuned in today to understand that, look, we all love each other. I love these two people that are with me today co-hosting, and I love everybody. I am a big humanity fan, and so we cannot lose our sense of humanity as we debate these subjects. And we have to be considerate of everybody's backgrounds and the way in which they're informed in life. However, we also can't back down because this is a spiritual battle, and it is a battle between good and evil. There's a lot of confusion. It reminds me of that Star Wars quote from Yoda. He said, "The dark side clouds everything."
Yeah.
And
please see the movie Lean on Me.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I'm going to take a quick look at some chats here. And then let's see. Looked like an anti-Jewish chat before we went online.
Yeah, the guy's either ill-informed or the backside of a mule.
I'm not sure. Or possibly he's just clowning us a little bit. I don't know. Let's see here. Got a FJB from Green Beanie 10th. All right. Lynn2112 says... I need to show you this video of Trump at a golf course calling Kamala pathetic. Now, I think we've seen that one, Lynn 2112. Let's see here. PF3 says somebody very close to her still isn't red-pilled, but this might be the best chance. Some people will never question what we're told, and I think that was behind her motivation in asking us to limit the our choice of vernacular tonight, and I think that's more than fair. We love you, Frito. Dana Sis says, praise the Lord above that my great-grandparents were not turned away at the U.S. border. You know what? I'm glad that we're all here. I can't speak to the experience of my great-grandparents, but I am grateful to be an American, and I'm grateful for you as well. Let's see. Frito, same here. My daughter needs disability and was denied. Now, she's talking about the excessive spending that is going to all of these things that are quite clearly not in the best interest of native-born and naturalized Americans. And Frito's daughter is somebody who needs that and can't get it. She says there are some legit asylum seekers, but many are being paid to come here to crush our system. Soros life goal. And who did the Soros family endorse for president yesterday? That would be our very eloquent Vice President Kamala Harris. Let's see.
Guys, I hate to do this,
Go.
but my mom
good.
who has dementia just called, and she never calls me.
Take care of business, Gabby.
Sorry about that. I need to go. It's Mom, so
That's
I'm gonna
okay.
pop
Yeah.
off.
I'll sign you
All right,
off.
See you guys next week.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, Gabby. I'll sign you off in a little bit. See ya.
Bye.
All right. So Althuser says George Soros is one of the few bourgeois people that are solely committed to furthering neoliberal politics. I don't know if he's neoliberal, if that's a fair thing to say. I mean, most neoliberals are not incredibly wealthy one percenters. Let's see. PF3 says, I keep calling you PF3, even though it's Precious Freedom 13 here on Rumble. I just can't get it out of my head, Frito. I'm sorry. Are you the biggest bean growing in the garden green? That's a good question. All right. And adds, it's a strategy to bankrupt our generous system, so we are crushed to the point of willingly asking the government to rescue us. I think there's some of us that will die before that happens. But that is the objective. They think it's going to work. And it probably has worked in the past. Look at ancient Rome and what happened there. PF3 says there should be a better system to help legitimate asylum seekers to come in at no charge. I would agree, although most of the legal fees incurred by asylum seekers are incurred non-domestically, which means that there are people out there, lawyers out there, preying on asylum seekers the same way that lawyers prey on personal injury cases and stuff like that. Let's see here. Mainstream news paints a false picture of who is coming here. Human trafficking, child sex trafficking, drug trafficking, and organ harvesting all require an open border. That's true. And even if only 1% of cases of illegal immigration touch those subjects, then that's too much for me. How do you feel about that, Jazz?
Well, I kind of have to, I agree that that's definitely happening. When I talked to my source about how, and he did mention that the rate that they're coming in is slowed down because they're already here. But
it hadn't slowed down that much, though.
They right now, though, are people of color that are taking them from the border and driving them through the 5 different states. Like, if anybody is unaware, there's essentially like 5 different stages in order to get into our country. Like 5 different, they're not gates, but you have to go so far into the country in order to actually get into the country. And they're stopping these people out on the middle of these dirt roads in the middle of the night, out in nowhere. The only people that have any kind of identification on them is the driver. And they are American citizens that are going down to the border, and they're driving them then to these various cities, and they're being paid to do so.
So American private citizens are being paid to transport illegals.
Yes.
And have we seen much in terms of conviction of that sort? I mean, because clearly, whether or not you agree with it, it's a crime.
No, they're getting their court dates. Like I was saying, along with the people that are trying to come into the country, which are dating out into 2026. So, yeah, they are arresting the American citizen that is essentially being the mule. But they have to give court dates for the people that they're transporting, and they're bringing in women, they're bringing in children. But right now, what I've been told is that the majority of the ones that they're stopping in the middle of the night, out in the middle of nowhere, are men from various countries that are of fighting age.
That's interesting because you mentioned men and fighting age, and one of the things that we've seen in recent years is a drastic rise in the number of Chinese illegals that are coming through the southern border. You would think it would be easier to get to the United States directly from China since they're, comparable latitudes. But from 2021 to 2022, the increase in Chinese illegals is 384%. But by the numbers, it's still very, very tiny compared to the number of Latin American illegals that are showing up.
They're seeing mostly in terms of when they run their backgrounds and see violent crime in their history, they're mainly Colombian, Venezuelan, and Cuban.
Well, I don't think the Chinese government shares information about the criminality of their citizens with the United States Customs. I really doubt that they do.
Well, this isn't customs. You have to. We talked about this delineation before. You have customs, but then you have United States Border Patrol, and they are a law enforcement entity.
Well, my point there is that I don't think the Chinese give a shit what Border Patrol or any American law enforcement authority has to say about people that are, as far as China's concerned, if somebody makes it outside of their borders, they're fucked anyway. They're not coming back if they're gone illegally because China has rules against leaving their country. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So interesting also, Cuba is now the third largest importer of American dwelling individuals at 220,000 in 2022. And I've got to think that most of the Cubans who have come here came from or came to South Florida. But this is at the U.S.-Mexico border. So that begs another question. If you're Cuban, why would you go all the way through Central America and come up through Mexico, New Mexico, Arizona, or California just to make your way into the country when you're 80 miles away from Key West to begin with? And that's another thing. Do you think Key West is so heavily fortified that they just don't let people come across on boats anymore? Because that used to be a big thing when in the 90s and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well, and we've seen the videos where they're bringing the boats up and they're hopping out and they're running and stuff like that. As much as people hate DeSantis, he has done quite a bit in terms of trying to secure.
Do you hate DeSantis?
I don't know.
I don't hate him.
I don't. I mean,
I think his campaign sucked. I think his social media was a bunch of BS, but
I think he is where he needs to be, which is in the state. He doesn't belong on the political and the presidential level. I think he's right where he should be.
Maybe not yet. Maybe not yet, huh?
That's just me. But he's having been a Floridian for as many years as I was. We've talked about it, how insulated that we have been during all of this compared to the rest of the country. You even look at what happened in Miami when they tried to start rioting in Miami and they had it shut down within 30 minutes. while you're watching other universities that are burning down.
Are you talking about that shopping mall thing that happened 3 or 4 months ago in Miami?
No, not the shopping mall.
Because that one, apparently there was some weird UFO stuff related to that one. A whole different channel on that.
No. That I'm not talking about that incident. I'm talking about like when it's with the universities and everything. And he put out a statement. He said, if you try to riot in our state, it's not going to work. And that was proven to be true.
Well, he also dissolved a number of communist clubs at some various colleges around the state, too, which he took a lot of heat for, and I tend to agree with him because dissolving communist clubs in colleges is the same thing as not doing anything. I mean, colleges are going to have communists because they're colleges.
Yeah, and when you talk about child trafficking and stuff like that, and Gabby was talking about morality, and look what he's done for the people when it comes to standing up against Disney, and what was going on in the Department of Education there, and indoctrination of our children. It's he's taken a very conservative family. Essentially a family stance, family first. And I have a lot of respect for that because I really think that a lot of society, we've just gotten too far away from morals and just being good, decent human beings. And
well, the target for individual behavior can't keep moving constantly. Like there has to be some semblance of a same way every time rule set for the way people govern their personal behavior. So I agree with you. When you're allowed to demand that people call you by a different designated pronoun every 10 minutes, or if you're allowed to claim a different sexual identity whenever you want and demand that people respect it, I think it is kind of over the line. I also think though that there's a sort of underpinning to all of that. So where some people would just dismiss that as miscreant behavior or, degenerate behavior, which it is, arguably, there's also a reason why things have gone this way. And if you look into concepts like cultural Marxism, if you look at the corporate capture of the entertainment industry, the corporate capture of the medical industry in particular, good Lord. It's not super surprising that a lot of people want to surgically become a different sex than the one they were born. I mean, it's being crammed down their throat, and the more you subscribe to pop culture, I think the more likely you are to be desirous of such stuff.
Well, and we're starting to see that culture shift. If you've been to the doctor, even like it'll say what's your birth gender and what gender do you identify as now, which within the last year, at least here.
I identify with the same gender that I was born with,
right.
So that's going on 48 years for me.
They want to remove putting the gender of yourself at birth from the birth certificate. That is something that is being talked about and is supposedly this future plan is to remove that portion of the birth certificate, saying that it really doesn't matter.
Okay, so if you look at that, all right, you look at the removal of birth assigned sexual identity. If you look at the insistence upon vaccines that aren't fully vetted, in other words, medical violence is what I like to call it. If you insist on intimidating people by threatening them with job loss so that they can't support their family, so that they can't support their reproductive function within society, if you look at the terminal indebtedness, if you look at I'm not going to say the A word, but if you look at the child harvesting, let us call it the child harvesting industry, the fetus harvesting industry, the human trafficking industry, the drugs on the street, the fentanyl, all of these things have one outcome in common, Jazz, and that's that they all reduce human population.
Exactly. And when you were talking, you mentioned the one thing that we don't want to bring up. That's something that we should be looking into the root and possible investments of our potential vice president in this upcoming election. I always say follow the money. I would say look at Ambrosia, look at the types of services that they offer. In terms
Have you posted about Ambrosia on your X?
No, I have not.
That might be something. If you've got some good stuff about Ambrosia and the JD Vance connections there, that would be a really good thing to post, because I don't have much on it. I don't have it in the show notes or anything like that. So,
right.
But there is some shady shit. Look, we're open-minded, free-thinking people here on Conspiracy Squad, and just because somebody has an R next to their name does not mean that we are going to jump in that basket and just go along with them.
Right.
It's always a choice between the lesser of two evils, and we have that to be a very, very keen situation right now, because I don't think that Donald Trump is a friend of the global elite, the WEF, the Soros organization, or all these enemies of individualism and freedom. JD Vance, I don't know. I don't know him well enough. He's from Ohio, so he does have that going for him.
Yeah. I think there are some other people that they could have looked at and taken on that have maybe a bit of a cleaner record when it comes to investments. Because I would just leave it at that.
You're trying to keep us alive on YouTube, aren't you? You know,
Well,
see, that's the dirty devil in the details, man. It's the censorship.
I had just never been aware of blood transfusions selling for $8,000 that were solely donations by children. To me, it is a bit alarming.
But you were aware, I think, of the medical need, the very quiet medical need to protect Rh negative mothers.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
What we did at every single birth is we collect cord blood. We have one that goes to the lab if needed to check the baby's cord sample to make sure that the mother can remain Rh negative and protect their future pregnancies so they didn't lose their potential
Rh
future
negativity.
pregnancies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it can cause them to have miscarriages if they are not given a RhoGAM shot. But
So do you think that the medical industry, which is obsessed with harvesting things from newborns, actually cares about the success of the mother, or do they just want to preserve Rh negativity because of some wild conspiracy theory about how the world works?
Well, I mean, Rh negativity, I don't really see that. The best part about the Rh negative is that the blood is compatible. If somebody's O negative, you can give that blood to anybody. Rare blood type, but it's a universal one that anybody can be a recipient of.
For
So,
O
of
neg,
course,
yes.
So of course, you want to protect the Rh negative mothers, and we never want to have somebody lose their baby because they weren't treated with after birth.
Well, they
However,
say that the most successful people in the world, generally the most intelligent, the most athletically gifted, the most, by most accounts, the best looking, all the most successful people in the world tend to be DNA marked as Rh negative. So that kind of, when I hear that there's a medical establishment that wishes to concern itself with Rh negativity and even preserve the ability of Rh negatives to be made, that definitely raises a few flags.
Well, when we did cord blood collection, I mean, parents, they have the choice. There are so many companies. They're like just throwing out Viacord is one. Parents can collect their cord blood for if they had a baby later on and they had some kind of a medical problem. It's preserve those stem cells and everything. So
for use with the child,
right,
potentially.
But we collected 2 tubes of cord blood on every delivery. One, like I said, that we could test the baby's blood type with. The other, after 15 years, I'll be honest with you, I don't know whatever happened with those, and I'm not going to speculate anything. I've never felt like during the time that I was doing labor and delivery that the second vial of blood was being used for something nefarious, but I don't know whatever happened to it. I know that there was an abundance of stem cells. I can say in 15 years, I've only had one baby that qualified for organ donation from organ procurement from any of the fetal demises that I've had.
Well, you're also not
I hate to
Planned
even say
Parenthood.
fetal
Do you know how many
demise.
babies that they simply sell?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
they treat it the same way that they treat any pathology disposal. The baby comes out of the mom and then disappears into some system that never gets talked about. It's like when you have your wisdom teeth pulled out or your kidney removed or whatever.
Well, you know what? Actually, what happens if a baby's less than 20 weeks old, and at least in the facility that I had worked at, that baby would be sent to pathology rather than sent to a
Crematory or whatever, yeah.
right, because they were non-viable babies. Viability, though, however, is 24 weeks. So there's that gray area. It's like, okay, if this baby's like less than 20 weeks old, it just gets put in a bucket and sent to pathology.
And then
And
God
then-
knows what,
and
because
then-
how many warehouses full of people's little, cysts and warts and ingrown
Right.
hairs and fetuses can there possibly be over the
Right.
last 100+ years?
Yeah. I mean, a pathologist, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. You don't need a pathology degree to open up a bucket. I'm sorry. And look, this is a bit graphic, and I'm sorry, guys, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to open a bucket and look in and say, that's a human baby and that's a placenta. Sorry. That's it. That's what it is.
Well, there does seem to
It's a
be
baby.
like an obsession, like a necro obsession among the moment of birth. The medical industry is obsessed with controlling pregnancies. And of course, the government and the medical industry collaborate on making sure that the moment of death and the handling of dead bodies is handled in a very highly, highly regulated way.
100%.
And why do you suppose that is?
100%. I had 1 hour, exactly 1 hour, if there were a baby who had passed in utero that was over 20 weeks. In that time frame, I had to make sure I had the head circumference, the circumference of the chest, the length of the baby. The gestation of the baby had to be known. I had to know how many grams it weighed, and I had to notify organ procurement within that hour with all of those stats for them to tell me yes or no if they wanted to have that baby. At that point, then
What sort of
if they
organs
said
would
yes.
be transferable from a smaller than infant sized human for use anywhere else in normal medicine though? You can't give a baby's kidney, which is the size of a peanut, to an adult, can you?
You can give it to another infant, another baby that's on the
I
organ
see.
procurement list. If they've been gone for a relatively short period of time, like I said, in 15 years, I only had one baby that actually qualified because we knew the actual time of death in utero, and it brings back some bad
Yeah, that's not
memories
easy.
too. But those when you know, you get the parents' consent, and they're going to use normally their corneas and their skin.
I see.
Sometimes they'll use other organs, and you pack a baby on ice and you wait for the team to come over from Miami, as it is in our area, and fly them over to Miami so they can use whatever they can for another life.
That's this is a curveball subject,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you what, Jazz she has seen some stuff, and I know Jazz personally. We know each other very, very well. She's not joking around. This is all legitimate. And we got on this subject because of something called the A word. I'm not saying it. Jazz isn't saying it.
No.
I'd really like to stay on YouTube, but people understand there are forbidden topics. There are forbidden topics, and that's probably the number one forbidden topic, because it has everything to do with child trafficking. It has everything to do with kidnapping. It has everything to do with human torture and just evil rottenness that is at the core of our spiritual warfare. So a couple of quick things, because we have to wrap it up here in about 5 minutes. If you'd like to follow the show, please do so right now. You got 27 people watching the program at the moment. I need all 27 of you to hit like, please. Jazz, urge them to hit that like button, please.
Please, if like this video, please repost it to your accounts, except for Facebook. According to Gabby, they'll take you down immediately.
Facebook will take you down for literally anything, man.
Yeah, you're going to lose your account and potentially some good memories and photos.
Actually, what you could do, if you want to post it on Facebook, make sure it's accompanied by a pride flag. That might get you through the door on Facebook.
Yeah, if anybody can Photoshop what's behind me and what I stand for.
Oh, here you go. Oh, God.
Just
let me just say, you asked for it, Jazz.
Here we go. We got to go this way. We got Border Patrol representing tonight. And then, yes, as always, our United States and our Constitution. And I love this country, and I want to see things come back and bounce back. And
yeah, for sure.
That's my hope for everything. So, yes, please like, subscribe, smash those buttons, pass it on. If you want to see me, follow me. You can mainly find me anymore. I'm on X at JasmineStar239. That's JasmineStarr239. That's where I spend most of my time and most of my information.
And you can follow me at NigelKent239 on Twitter/X. They're going to change the name back. Mark my words. Instagram, Join the C Squad. Twitter, Join the C Squad. And as of tonight, YouTube, Official Conspiracy Squad. Of course, we're on Rumble every Monday night at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific on the Conspiracy Squad channel here. Make sure you subscribe. And then you can also get audio replays weekly. They come out the next day on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Podcast Addict, and pretty much Spreaker, iHeartRadio, all the usual suspects for podcasts. If you'd like to be in the scroll on the show, make sure you follow us on one of those platforms. And if you'd like to talk privately, you can definitely email us, media@agency-w.com. And one last thing, Jasmine Star, how do you turn this thing off?